Of basketball. Probably baseball, right? Everybody wants to talk about baseball. Masters. Let's talk about Masters. No. I have not. I've played multiple times. I can't say that I've played exceedingly well, but my best round was 83. Yeah. I parred 7 out of 9 holes on the par 3. That's probably my famous claim to fame. And I had a great night in Butler Cabin. That's probably my best. That was probably the best thing. All right, let's roll. What do we got? Anything that is of interest?
Yeah, with the defensive line, how are you guys working things around right now with Jamar gone, and just when do you kind of expect maybe something to happen there?
Coach Chapman, as you know, is a well-credentialed, experienced defensive line coach. So obviously he's coaching the interior defensive linemen. During the spring, we feel great about that, and then Coach Jancic is coaching the Jacks. So, from that perspective, we'll go through the spring, and then, obviously we're, putting together our thoughts relative to, do we hire within? Do we go outside? And I think all of our options are on the table. We think it's important that. This is a position that we examine all options. But again, we have, outstanding coaches here, and we want to be able to get through the spring and then go from there. Yes.
Coach, how are you going to be operating scrimmages with the personnel you've got and being thin at positions? And have you made a decision on, is there actually going to be a spring game, or what might it be?
Yeah, so we've been very, I think, deliberate in terms of the way we've gone about our practice schedule. But it functioned very similar. I think we probably have chopped maybe 10, 15 minutes off of a normal schedule. But have done everything that we normally would do. I think we've just abbreviated it a little bit. I think Brad's been really good in terms of making sure that, his focus has been, technique-oriented, more so than a heavy dose of contact. And so I think that's worked out pretty good. So, going into this weekend, I think we're in a pretty good position where we're, rotating too deep. There's going to be some spring game action. Now, if we abbreviate it and then, maybe you see some situational work as well, that's on the table. But there'll be some live scrimmaging in the game, but expect to see maybe some situational work as well, and maybe we'll throw in a couple of other wrinkles in there, to keep it lively for everybody. But I think we're in a pretty good position now as we get closer and closer to the halfway point that we'll be able to get a good scrimmage in.
When looking for a coach, I guess specifically D-line right now, how do you weigh out all the different variables of kind of the pros of being a coach, a teacher, a recruiter, experience, all these different things?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think if you would just look at assembling a staff in the SEC, look at the position groups that make, such an important impact on your team. And, I mean, you'd hard-pressed to say that the defensive line is not as important as any position. So, recruiter and talent developing is got to be at the top of the list. So, the ability to recruit in the SEC and develop talent is got to be 1A, 1B. So, what does that mean? I mean, I think, it narrows your pool, from that perspective. Experience then comes into being part of that, right? You can't be an inexperienced, never been in the SEC, or knows the recruiting of this landscape, and be a qualified candidate. So I think just by the nature of me laying out the two most important factors kind of puts you on the path to what that candidate looks like.
We've talked about this a little before, but with Harold Perkins, where are you at right now in terms of, do you want him returning back inside, kind of hovering outside? What's your plan?
Yeah, we want him playing linebacker. We got him on the field last year in an accelerated role based upon the fact that there was just too much for him to digest, and we didn't want to get in the way of, too much meant, paralysis by analysis, right? So I thought Matt did a great job of making things a lot smoother for him so we could get him on the field and let him play fast. Now it's time to take the whole, position and, teach it. So, he's a linebacker. He's going to play linebacker, and he's fully invested in that position. So you'll see him playing linebacker for us.
Miles Frazier's been out the last couple of days, and he's back now. What sort of progress have you sort of seen from him? And
Yeah, he's had a good week. He was back in the rotation today, so missed a little bit of time, but I think it was just a small hiccup in his development. So kind of stepped right in there, didn't even notice he had been out.
Hey, Coach, I know the tight ends have been pretty young coming in with
Yeah.
Jackson and Mack. What do you think about them and their progression so far during the spring?
Been really pleased. Didn't know what to expect, obviously, coming in. We knew they were going to be players that would eventually help us in some fashion, but I think that their play this spring has been more than we expected. So I think we're excited about what they can do, and they're most likely going to be able to help us in the fall.
Brian, when it comes to sort of, I guess, evaluating whoever this potential defensive line coach ends up being as a recruiter, other than maybe just seeing, what they've done on the recruiting trail in terms of who they've recruited, how do you go about identifying and evaluating that aspect of the job?
Well, I think one of the criteria would be certainly recognizing who they've recruited in the past, and then their understanding of recruiting to LSU and the SEC. So you're talking to a number of different people that know them or have knowledge of that person. And then my conversations with that person in terms of the kind of character that is necessary for them to succeed here at LSU. So, look, I mean, we could turn on the film and we could see a 5-star defensive lineman. That's easy. But there has to be more to it than that. And so having conversations with a defensive line coach that recognizes that it's much more than just the ability. They have to be somebody that we enjoy being around and want to teach as well.
I believe you mentioned that first week you were kind of seeing who you might want to move back at safety a little, at corner. I mean, does Taviano look like somebody you guys might move a little bit?
Yeah, he's playing some nickel for us right now and some safety. So he's a guy that has that flexibility. We'll play him a little bit at corner here in the last week, going into the last week. But right now, he's the guy that we have singled out is playing a little bit of nickel and safety.
Kyle Parker seemed like a guy who sort of rose up the recruiting charts toward the end of his recruitment. What have you sort of seen from him so far this spring?
Yeah, a physical and a mental maturity beyond being a freshman. He's a guy that I think early on has shown in the weight room a physicality. He's really strong. He's fit. And then he translated that on the field. So, yeah, just again, I think both of the freshmen have done really well this spring coming in as mid-years. But I think Parker brings a physicality to the group that is pretty impressive.
Ryan, obviously with so many running backs out, Noah Kane is getting quite a bit of work right now. I guess what have you seen from him, and also maybe his progression from last year to this season?
So Noah's a lot more, I think, aware of the areas that he needed to work on, and so I think he's lost some body fat. I think he's, not that he was fat, but he's leaner, and I think that has allowed him to, at his position, just move more fluid, and you could see it in the way he's running the football. Secondly, I think it's been really good for him because he's gotten a lot of work in pass protection. Williams had been our third down back. Now Noah's getting a chance to get all those reps, which has been really good for him. So I think just being more of a complete back, losing, some of the body weight, leaning up, has allowed him to be quicker and transitioning in and out of his breaks. And then, I think from a tactical standpoint, picking up third down blitzes, things like that has really helped him.
You've talked about, with so much of a returning foundation, how you guys can start a little bit more ahead of the curve than you were last year. Just in what ways have you seen that kind of translate in these first couple weeks of practice?
Well, I think we're able to focus a little bit more on the individual development than the program development. We were laying down foundational bricks for being more reliable, standards, showing up on time, how to practice, nutrition, you name it. It was a whole new way of doing things. And so there's a lot of time and effort spent on that. Now we can get into a lot more of the technical and tactical development. Today we were working on red zone, cover zero pressures. We didn't get to that. I don't know that we even got to that in preseason camp. So today it was, all out blitzes and pressures and making sure that we were communicating effectively on the back end and stacks and things. Just a little bit more of the nuances, I guess, is what I'm saying. Good? All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.